So I thought that we would start these quotations from the wisdom of the Kadampa masters. So the first one says, again, Kuntu Nyok and Dromdompa asked Atisha. The first three are Atisha's disciples. Of all the teachings of the path, which is the best? Good question, huh? And Atisha replied, the best learning is realizing the truth of no self. Okay, so no self. Let's just look at that word to start with, because the word itself can be very confusing. If you hear it, like there's no self, then it sounds like, Atisha or the Buddha is saying there's no person whatsoever, there's no self. That's not the meaning at all, okay? Here, actually the word self can be quite confusing because in Buddhism it can be used in two different ways depending on the context, okay? So sometimes the word self refers to the person that exists, like you and me, okay? Sometimes it refers to what we call the object of negation, meaning inherent existence, which is a form of existence that has never existed and never will exist. The thing is that when you read the phrase or hear the word in a sentence, it doesn't necessarily tell you which meaning it has. And so if you think of the opposite meaning, then you get really confused. So when Atisha is saying there's no self, he doesn't mean there's no person. He means there's no inherent existence, which is that fantasized way of existence that we that appears to us and that we grasp onto because we think things exist in the way they appear to us as some kind of objective reality. So the word self also comes in selflessness. Yeah. So we say, well, when we realize that there's no inherent existence, there's no self in that context, in that way, then we realize selflessness. Then the word selflessness is also confusing in English because we hear selfless and we think about people who are very compassionate. So then we go, wait a minute, they're telling us there's no inherent existence, and then we realize compassion, and I'm confused, okay? So that's why some people say no self rather than selfless or selflessness, because it can be confusing in English. I tend to use selflessness simply because no self can also be confusing, yeah? But selflessness means the emptiness of inherent existence, and that can be of either persons or of phenomena. Okay. Now, that's a bunch of vocabulary words that some of you may be familiar with, some of you may not be. So let me talk a little bit about how to apply it practically. So you're in retreat now, right? So you're not talking, you're looking at your mind. Yeah? What do you see in your mind? Yep. There's a whole lot of discussion going on in your mind, isn't there? Yeah, there's a lot of conceptualization. The mind is thinking and remembering things and from the past, planning things from the future, worrying about what's going to happen now. All sorts of stuff going on. I mean, just constantly, right? Okay. And who does most of this stuff revolve around? Oh, ourselves, of course. Yeah. So now we have to look at conception. Some conceptions are beneficial. Some conceptions are not. For example, we're using our conceptual consciousnesses right now if we're going to learn and think about the nature of reality, the selfless nature of persons and phenomena. So to learn about it, to think about it, to understand the words and meanings, to get a correct intellectual understanding of it, we need concepts. And that correct intellectual understanding or correct conceptual understanding is necessary before we can directly perceive emptiness. Okay, so that kind of conceptualization is very useful. You know, when you're doing Lamrim meditation, you're using concepts. That's very useful. You become much clearer in your mind. There's another kind of conceptualization. That's the yep kind. Yeah, and we all have similar, but also our own habits or patterns of conceptualization. Okay? So, with the yap kind, so some people, their main object when their mind is chattering is, I don't fit in this group. Okay? And so there's always the mind says, I don't fit in. Yeah. Then other people have the mind that says, I'm excluded. Not that I don't fit in. I fit in, but they're excluding me. And so they see the world through that lens. Everybody's excluding me. Whereas the other person sees it through, I don't fit in anywhere. Then there's a third person who looks around and says, nobody likes me. Yeah, they're sure about that. And they can document it. Yeah. He didn't look at me at breakfast time. That means he didn't like me. Okay? So they see everything through that lens. They don't like me. Fourth person sees things through, they're criticizing me. Yeah. So even people ask questions, that question is a criticism. Why didn't you do that? Or that should have been done. Yeah. And somebody else, looks at things through, they're criticizing me, then, they don't recognize my good qualities. Yeah. And so they see the world through, well, I have all these good qualities, nobody recognizes them. Yeah. Then another person sees the world through, I'm a disaster, I'm no good. Everything I do goes wrong. And on and on and on. Are you recognizing maybe one or more of these? Yeah. So we all, I would say, have all of these to some extent, but we probably focus on one or two that are our primary modes, so that whenever we meet people or whenever we're in a situation, that's our primary thing. I don't fit in, they're excluding me, they're criticizing me, something's wrong with me. Yeah, they don't appreciate me. And then there's a whole bunch of other ones too, that go on and on. Yeah? So, it's very interesting. I mean, there's a lot of ways to handle these different kind of conceptualizations. One is to ask, are they true? And to really sit down and examine, is this really true? And look at the facts. Does somebody not saying good morning to me at breakfast mean they don't like me? Yeah. Is that a correct syllogism? Yeah. Is there pervasion that every time somebody doesn't look at you at breakfast, it means they don't like you? Yeah? Is that correct? Yeah. They can never have a stomach ache, and that may be the reason why they don't look at you at breakfast. Yeah. They may be half asleep, that could be the reason. No. It always has to be because they don't like me. Is that true or not true? Okay. So we need to look at our syllogisms that we're setting up in our mind, our logic that we're using to play by these, okay? But another thing that's very helpful to do, because all these conceptualizations just happen to concern me. Yeah. I wonder why that is. But they just all happen to concern me. To ask ourselves, who? Yeah. They're criticizing me. Who? Who's the I that they're criticizing? Yeah. So you sit there in your meditation and you say, who is the I that they're criticizing? Yeah. Am I my body? Well, they may have criticized my looks, but does that mean I'm my body? If I'm my body, which body am I? Yeah, the baby body, the toddler body, the teenage body, the adult body, the decrepit, fall-apart body. Yeah. Which part of the body am I? Yeah. Which part of the body were they criticizing? Okay, so you look. Then, well, no, I'm not my body. Then who is it? Who's the one they're criticizing? They're criticizing my mind. Okay, which mind? Well, they said I was selfish. Well, that's true. And I criticize my selfish mind too, so why am I so upset? Okay, but am I my selfish mind? If I were my selfish mind, then I would be selfish 100% of the time. Well, actually, that's not, that selfish mind isn't there 100% of the time. Maybe 95. Maybe some days only 50. Yeah, but it's not there all the time. So who exactly is it that they're criticizing? Yeah. Are they criticizing the mind that's asleep? Well, no, I'm not the mind that's asleep. Okay. So you look, who exactly are they criticizing? Well, they're not really criticizing my body. They're not really criticizing my mind. They're criticizing me. And then you go back to who? Who's that me that they're criticizing? Find it. Who is it? Body, mind, or something else? Is there something else that's not the body and mind that's maybe you? Yeah? So your body and mind is here and you're somewhere else? Like some soul? Exactly who is the recipient of this criticism? And who has the hurt feelings? Me! Well, who? Who's the I with the hurt feelings? Okay? So you really look, and this is a very, very good way to, get some understanding about no self, because the self in the way that we ordinarily conceptualize it, is false. We can't find, because our ordinary conceptualization of the self is there's some objective thing that's me. But when we look for that objective thing that's me, we can't identify one thing that is me forever and ever in all situations. Okay? So that gives you some feeling of selflessness in the sense that there's no objective or inherently existent person that doesn't fit in that other people are criticizing, that is always a disaster, that can't do anything right, that other people are always talking about behind my back. That's another one I forgot to mention. Yeah, they're always talking about me behind my back. And so you see the world that way. And they don't appreciate me. You see the world that way. Okay? So just check, who is that person? Yeah? That you feel so strongly is the object involved in all these conceptualizations. Okay?